Всем
Hello
привет, меня
everyone,
зовут
my
Илья
name is
Яшин.
Ilya Yashin. Do you know this gentleman? Well, of course you do. This is the British writer George Orwell. You've probably read his dystopias, 1984, and Animal Farm. The person is amazing. He died more than 70 years ago. But his prophecies still come true and become reality in various dictatorship of the world. Here, for example, is one of his most famous quotes. In a time of deceit, telling the truth is a revolutionary act. You have to agree. This is literally about modern Russia, where you can be accused of attempting to undermine the foundations of the state, if you just tell what's what. Our country, Russia, is drowning in lies and hypocrisy. Against the backdrop of mass poverty, a feast in time of plague is thrown by a newly formed caste of security services, or Slavic billionaires. They devour the country, swallow national wealth, and pour oil down their throats. And those people who try to open the other's eyes to the truth are declared extremists by the authorities. Whole legislative packages are passed to silence them using criminal charges. In Russia, a country that defeated fascism at the cost of huge sacrifices, more and more bills become laws which seem to have been written by the resurrected political theorists of the Third Reich. These laws not only deprive a large number of citizens of their essential rights and isolate them from participating in political activity, but also serve as a foundation for creating a regime comparable to a political ghetto. Literally anyone who is dissatisfied with the authorities and expresses disagreement can find themselves there. Do you think I'm exaggerating, overstating, and making a mountain out of a molehill? My dear friends, no. This is very serious. The political regime in Russia, indeed, began to acquire features of real fascism. Today we will talk about how this is happening. Let's go. Clearly the word fascism in our country has long been considered simply as profanity. You can call someone behaving aggressively and anti-socially a fascist without hesitation. But let us look from the standpoint of political science what fascism in reality is. It is a special kind of state, where power belongs to a small group of individuals headed by a dictator, a sort of corporation that holds under strict control literally every state institution and all branches of the government, including the parliament, courts of law, and, of course, law enforcement agencies. It is impossible to have a transition of power in the government through elections in such a state. Only the corporation, and the dictator determine who occupies key positions in the governing system. Decisions are made behind closed doors, although they are often masqueraded as popular views of the masses. Only one party exists at the basis of government operation, controlling the parliament and de facto turning into a part of the state. Thus, speaking out against this party is practically the same as speaking out against the state. Finally, any political dissent under a fascist regime is repressed. Oppositional activity is declared as a disruption of the foundations of the state, and all the critics of the authorities are labeled as being extremists. Moreover, there is a clear relation: the lower the support and popularity of the authorities in the society, the higher the pressure on those who disagree. The fear of police violence is the main basis of any such dictatorship. Another feature of fascist regimes, which I specifically want to draw your attention to, is the passing of laws aimed at the part of society that the government considers politically unreliable. Such people are declared enemies of the state, anti-social elements, extremists. Special laws massively deprive entire social groups of their rights and lead to their social isolation. Sometimes it is based on ethnicity, as in the Third Reich, for example. Recall the racial laws of 1935 in Germany, which were aimed against Jews. At the legislative level they were deprived of their citizenship, forbidden to marry Germans or even to use the colors of the state flag. Essentially, the Jews were legally declared outside of law, their basic rights were taken away, and they were deprived of any protection from police brutality. Earlier, in 1926, Fascist Italy passed a whole package of the so-called emergency laws initiated by Benito Mussolini. The state has officially isolated any political opposition. Oppositional parties, newspapers and rallies were banned in the country. Members of the anti-fascist alliances were expulsed from the parliament. Political immigrants were stripped of their citizenship and their property was confiscated. You get the idea, right? This no longer is a simple political struggle among proponents of various ideologies and parties. No, we are talking about a corporation that has gained power in the country, is becoming a part of the state itself, while everyone who disagrees is actually declared outlawed. Now let's get back to our Russian realities. The Moscow City Court outlawed all organizations affiliated with Alexei Navalny by declaring them extremist. We are talking about the Anti-Corruption Foundation, as well as about the network of local headquarters that operated in various regions of the country. There is no doubt that the court fulfilled the Kremlin's political request and will soon ban any activity of Navalny's supporters in Russia. Indeed, a dictatorship classic, any political opposition is outlawed. But that's not all. Simultaneously, the State Duma is passing amendments to federal legislation that literally strip hundreds of thousands of people of their political rights. Doesn't it remind you of the laws of fascist regimes? It's up to you to judge. A new legal concept is introduced, a person affiliated with an extremist organization. Who can be deemed such a person? Let's read the legislative proposal. First, we are talking about persons who are leaders, participants and employees of an extremist organization. Simply put, the law talks about the people who worked at Anti-Corruption Foundation and were coordinators and employees of Navalny's local headquarters. This is about 500 people. One may say, what's 500 people in a country with nearly 146 million people? Is this enough to talk about massive rights deprivations? Well, don't rush to conclusions. Let's continue to read the legislative proposal. Those who have provided financial or organizational assistance to an extremist organization are declared extremist accomplices. Now this is much more broad. The Anti-Corruption Foundation existed and conducted its activities owing to voluntary donations that people made to the organization's account en masse. The Anti-Corruption Foundation conducted its activities according to the law and always published reports, including financial ones. Thanks to these reports, we know that over the past 3 years, more than 200,000 people have donated money to the foundation's account. Attention! Each of them, under the new law, can be deemed an accomplice of an extremist organization. But that's not everything. We read further, persons providing advisory and other support in the implementation of activities of an extremist organization. As you can see, here the wording is as vague as possible and allows to apply the law simply to anyone. For example, Navalny published the results of the investigation about Putin's palace in Gelendzhik. The video on YouTube has received 4.5 million likes. As you know, likes expand its audience and determine how popular a video becomes. So, according to the logic of Russian authorities, if you like a video and therefore help its spread, it means you provide support to extremists. Thus, everyone who likes or shares the investigated video on a social network can automatically be recognized as person involved in extremist activities. Yes, you understand everything correctly. In accordance with the new bill, which was proposed by the deputies of United Russia, several million Russians can be recognized as accomplices of extremists. Hence a huge part of society is declared untrustworthy at the legislative level. What sanctions will be imposed on these people? For now, United Russia proposes to take the first step, to deprive these people of the right to be elected to any office at all. Meaning, to deprive them of the right guaranteed by the Article 32 of the Russian Constitution, which says, citizens of the Russian Federation have the right to elect and be elected to either state or local government. Supposedly you worked at Anti-Corruption Foundation, volunteered at Navalny's local headquarters, made donations, liked or shared investigative videos on social networks. All this is enough for the court to deprive you of the right to be elected even as a municipal deputy in your area. The establishment is pushing this bill, literally destroying the legal principles established by the Constitution. Here is another article of the Basic Law, Article 54, where it is clearly written, a law introducing or aggravating responsibility shall not have retrospective effect. No one may bear responsibility for the action which was not regarded as a crime when it was committed. Do you understand what that means? Law cannot be retroactive. For example, you like red ties and enjoy wearing them. And then the Duma passes a law that prohibits such ties. You take off your red tie and don't put it back on. And the Constitution guarantees that you cannot be held accountable for wearing it before the law was passed. But the bill initiated by United Russia simply ignores this constitutional principle. Everyone who at least somehow came into contact with the Anti-Corruption Foundation and Navalny's headquarters over the past 3 years will be held responsible and banned from participating in elections. This is such an impudent legal chaos that socially appropriate vocabulary does not exist to comment on it. I just want to ask these doorknobs from United Russia, do you understand that this new law of yours just reeks of fascism? One of the creators of this initiative, the infamous Senator Andrei Klishis, said that this bill reflects the opinion of the majority of Russians and protects Russia's national independence. Breathtaking hypocrisy. It is obvious to anyone that a self-assured government that acts on behalf of the majority does not need such laws. The government with a lot of support among people does not need to declare its opponents extremists, it does not need to remove them from the elections and to hunt them down with criminal charges. No, a popular political establishment is not afraid of competition, but simply goes to elections and wins. But that's where United Russia experiences huge problems. Its members are flanking local elections, losing even to technical no-name opponents. The ruling party is frantically preparing for the 2021 September election, horrified by the realization that its ratings are lower than they have ever been. The creator of this bill, Senator Klishis, has the audacity to justify his shameful initiative by saying that he speaks on behalf of the majority. In fact, these are actions aimed at retention of power by a corporation that represents the interests of a mind-numbing minority, a tiny group that maintains control over the country through intimidation and repression of dissent. Putin and United Russia are well aware that society is tired of them. People are bored to death of this corrupt rot, which suffocates the entire country. They are bored of the irresponsibility and impunity of the government and security officials as well. People are tired of the fact that 88% of Russia's national wealth belongs to 1/10 of the country's population. People want freedom and justice, they want political representation, they want the establishment to be replaced and the government to be renewed through election. Instead, they impose fascist laws and dictatorship of old men, who are distraught over their luxury. To be able to resist this effectively, it is very important to change your own way of thinking. We must altogether realize that the supporters of changes are the larger part of Russian society. We must stop spreading the myth about the enormous support of Putin. We must stop repeating this nonsense that 84% of the population is on his side. The darkness of a dictatorship always thickens when society is pulled apart and paralyzed with fear. Therefore, do not be afraid of anything and unite with like-minded others. The moment shall come when we will raise the flag and take back our country. You and I must be ready for that moment. Thank you for watching this video. Do not forget to like it, then YouTube will recommend it to other users more often. Share the video on social networks, subscribe to my channel, become its sponsor. Russia will be free. See you next time.